putting Dr. Fitzgerald herself on the hot seat to celebrate 10 years of the podcast. What made you start this podcast?
Changing this disease trajectory that we're on. It's an all hands on deck activity. These podcasts don't go in one ear and out the other. And these things fundamentally change me as a provider, as a clinician, as a thinker, as a scientist. I love being inspired. I love being educated, from the trenches of deep science to just pure clinical gold. It's just an honor to be able to talk to people, to ask people questions, to be able to listen and just kind of receive their brilliance and to share that with other people. It's just absolutely a thrill in my life that other people are interested in the conversation. I want to personally invite you to the Functional Medicine is Longevity Medicine Masterclass, a free online event featuring the leading minds in functional and longevity medicine. We'll explore why functional medicine remains the most science-backed path to extending health span. In a world chasing the latest longevity hacks, we're spotlighting what we've known all along. Healthy longevity starts with root cause resolution, systems biology, and personalized care. Join us live September 17th through the 19th at functionalmedicineslongevitymedicine.com. Thanks to our Diamond Level sponsors. Precision Analytical, creator of the Dutch test, is offering evidence-based training on key topics like hormone metabolism, interpreting Dutch test results, and therapeutic strategies, including hormone replacement therapy, all aimed at improving patient outcomes. Become a registered provider to gain access to an expansive education hub with ongoing content, including webinars and case studies. Visit dutchtest.com/courses to get started and grow your practice. For over 40 years, the foundation of Biotics research has been innovation and quality. Their goals remain unchanged: innovative ideas, carefully researched concepts, and product development with advanced analytical and manufacturing techniques. Biotics nutritional products are of superior quality and effectiveness. They are available exclusively to the healthcare provider. Find them at bioticsresearch.com. Thanks to our gold level sponsors. Timeline, fueling cellular energy for a lifetime of healthy aging. Find them at timeline.com. Vibrant Wellness, transformative lab tests for wellness. Find them at vibrant-wellness.com.
Hello, and welcome to this special episode of New Frontiers in Functional Medicine to celebrate 10 years of the podcast. And if you were expecting Dr. Caroline Fitzgerald to be introducing you to this podcast, don't worry, you are still in the right place. We are just doing something a little different for this episode, and we are putting Dr. Fitzgerald herself on the hot seat. So I'm Romilly Hodges. I'm a longtime colleague and friend of Dr. Fitzgerald. I'm honored to call you a mentor, Dr. Fitzgerald, and to have walked so many pieces of this journey with you. I've learned so much from you, so much from this podcast with all the amazing guests that you've had. So I'm actually going to be you and start us off in the usual manner. So welcome to New Frontiers in Functional Medicine, where we are interviewing definitely the best minds in functional medicine. And today is by far no exception. We have Dr. Fitzgerald for you. And I know that you don't often get to read your bio, so in fact, you don't ever get to read your bio. So I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of your bio. I'm sure most of them know you very, very well. Dr. Fitzgerald is actively engaged in award-winning clinical research on epigenetics and longevity, using a diet and lifestyle intervention developed in her research and in her clinical practice. She's published 2 clinical studies on the potential bioage reversing effects of an 8-week DNA methylation supportive diet and lifestyle in middle-aged men and in women. And you have other publications that have since come out on that topic. And also you are the author, of course, of the best-selling book, Younger You, How to Reduce Your Bioage and Live Longer Better. You are on faculty, Dr. Fitzgerald, at the Institute for Functional Medicine, and she lectures globally on functional medicine, longevity, and epigenetics to practitioners and to consumers. You maintain an award-nominated podcast series, this series, the New Frontiers in Functional Medicine podcast, that has amassed now well over, in fact, 2 million listens and is closing in on 200 episodes. And you also have an active stream of very forward-thinking content on your website, drcarafitzgerald.com, and your clinical practice, the New Frontiers Functional Medicine and Nutrition Clinic, is located in Newtown, Connecticut. So welcome, Dr. Fitzgerald, to your own podcast. And I'm excited to dive into a lot of things today, but really, a reflection of what has been, how the podcast came to be, what is going on for you now, and also as you look into the future. So we're going to do a little bit of a tour. So at this point, New Frontiers in Functional Medicine has been going on for 10 years. And as I mentioned, over 2 million listens. Actually, it's about 2.25 million listens and downloads so far. And just about 200 episodes. You're going to hit 200 episodes in the next few weeks. What did you set out to do with this podcast? Tell us about how it originated.
Okay. Well, first of all, Romilly, let me just say we could spend a whole episode sort of chatting about our own relationship, but I won't. I do want to, though, say to everybody, if you're not aware, Romilly Hodges has been my right-hand woman in all of these endeavors. She's the co-author with me on our research papers. She co-designed the methylation diet and lifestyle, now, renamed the Younger You protocol. But you've been with me every step of the way. It's funny. I will just share this one anecdote and then we'll get down to business because it always makes me laugh. I know it makes you laugh too. When you first came, so you came as a student, you were shadowing me in clinic practice, and immediately we created this amazing nutrition program together. Like we kind of we built the clinic into what it is today, but quickly you became indispensable to me. And we share the same birthdays, everybody. We share the same birthdays.
I was wondering what anecdote you were going to go with. So that's a good one.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's our anecdote. So okay. But you, Rom, as you can hear from her voice, she's a Brit, and you'll probably notice from this podcast, or the fact that you haven't seen her everywhere, if you're not familiar with her, she's a pretty reserved Brit. And, it's so funny. And I was talking to my sister about this. My sister's into astrology. And I said, well, Romilly shares the same birthday, but we're so different. I'm kind of bombastic and I'm out there and lecturing and on and on. And she looked at me and she's like, Kara, you guys are the same. She said to me, she's like, you are into the same thing. You think about the same things. You both share the same passions. And I was like, God, you're completely right. And of course, it's true. So on the surface, we have different deliveries, but we've shared these passions together. And I think we complement each other. Your strengths certainly complement mine. We've done what we've done because, we're a team. So it's with deep gratitude that I have the honor and privilege to continue to walk this with you. You're in your PhD program. You've got kids also. You're just you're teaching at Sonoran University. You're very, very busy, but the fact that you make time to continue this journey with me, to continue our research together, to do this podcast, to, work with me in manifesting this, this vision, is something that I am deeply grateful for, and just, continue to be.
The feeling is neutral. That's, yeah. Oh, we'll get back to it though. That's lovely.
Let's get back to it.
So go back to the, what made you start this podcast? What was this all about?
Yeah. It helps that I had this background in the lab, and that I was, at that time I had just joined faculty at IFM. So it definitely helped that I had access to, some of the functional medicine luminaries for sure. And I wasn't afraid to sort of text bomb them as needed to get onto the show. But it quickly became apparent to me that, that really all of the guests have been interesting, really even extraordinary. Like we all have our own brilliance. I think that's one of the pieces that I will leave. Sometimes I'll just be compelled to share when I'm speaking. And that is that changing the medical paradigm, changing this disease trajectory that we're on, just the breakdown of health, the compromise of health span and lifespan. It's an all hands on deck activity. And what that means to me is that we all have our areas of expertise and we need to lean in those and believe in those and bring those forward. It's just this beautiful puzzle that we're building, and we're all, our own unique piece, our own unique offering. And so it became apparent to me pretty darn quickly that within the context of a podcast and like sort of bringing out a person's brilliance, that, everybody has this, everybody has their angle and, their story to tell, their brilliance to contribute. And so it's just an honor to be able to talk to people, to be able to ask people questions, to be able to listen and just kind of receive, their brilliance and to share that with other people. It's just absolutely a thrill in my life that other people are interested in the conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you've just carved such an interesting journey navigating through all of these new areas of thinking, new areas of evidence in functional medicine. And I hope all the listeners picked up on the fact that, everybody is a piece of this ecosystem, and
Yeah.
everybody has their role. Like
Yeah.
everybody that's listening has a role that they're playing
Yes.
in moving functional medicine forward. And that's really cool to be part of that community. I love
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, do you ever find yourself but like having these conversations as a way to kind of discover things yourself, like as a way to kind of scratch the itch for you to try to, in areas that you want to know more about?
Oh my gosh, of course, right? Of course. Yeah, the podcast, I mean, we could look at this from another angle. It's incredibly selfish to be able to interview, the most brilliant minds in functional medicine. Of course, I love it. I love being inspired. I love being educated. God, from the trenches of, deep science to, just pure clinical
Mm.
gold, and all points in between.
Well, let's go a little bit deeper into that then. Tell us some of your, I mean, it's hard to pick, I'm sure, across all of these interviews, but do you
Yeah.
have some standouts? Like, what are the highlights for you? Or maybe also tell us also some, who was the most fun person to interview? Or
Oh gosh, that it's going to be difficult. Who was the most fun person? God, I would say the first person that jumps to mind in the fun arena, which was entirely unexpected, was Charles Sirhan. So, Sirhan, he's a PhD out at Harvard, and he's the scientist who characterized specialized pro-resolving lipid mediators. He found, he discovered a universe, that exists in our body. These metabolites of polyunsaturated fatty acids, the omega-3s and the omega-6s. He discovered them. I mean, he's got to receive the Nobel at some point. These are exquisitely important physiologically, and there are brain derived, specialized pro-resolving lipid mediators. There's, they're in the immune system, they're in the heart, they're in the liver, like they're just in full tilt circulation, attenuating, balancing, helping to create, clean up, all things immune system. And of course, it can't come as a surprise that, in this chronic disease sort of epidemic that we find ourselves in around the world, these pro-resolving lipid mediators aren't being produced in adequate supply, and for many reasons, a big one being that we don't have enough omega-3s. Anyway, stalked him for many years, or at least sort of, how as much as you could possibly stalk like a really busy Harvard scientist to get on my podcast. Like, so all of my connections towards, anybody who would know him, or when he was at a conference, I would just see if I could get him in. And finally he agreed to do it. And he was just, really, scientists in general are always fun to talk to, but he was particularly fun and funny and had an exquisite command of the science. And I find also talking with scientists who are really in the trenches of their work, they're always so excited when somebody outside of their world is as jazzed up with what they're doing as they are. So he was really happy to discover this world of functional medicine where we absolutely care deeply about what he's doing. So it's just one of my all-time favorite podcasts.
Such a legend. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember like literally kind of running to go and listen to the raw audio file of that one before it had even gone through any editing.
And what did you think? You were like, you loved it, right?
It was very exciting. I know. It was, super, super cool.
So learn about it. Anybody, if you haven't heard my chat with Charles Sirhan, please circle back and listen to it. And one of his postdocs joined us, who was also fabulously brilliant. So it was a tour de force conversation. One of my favorite conversations, unexpectedly funny, really had worked hard to get him on my podcast. But like, in thinking a little bit like, juicy, deep, like clinical expertise, and then flipping over to the like bench science. So we've had all points in between. But when we first started this conversation, the other person, so thinking clinically, Sid Baker, Baker, Dr. Sidney Baker. Any of us in functional medicine for any length of time would cite Sid Baker as our mentor, as our deepest inspiration. He's now retired, actually, from medicine. He might be doing a little bit of practice. He is a father of this field as much as Dr. Jeff Bland. And so having Sid Baker on my podcast, oh my goodness, just everything that he says is inspirational and relevant, not just to the practice of medicine and to be the best provider we possibly can, but his humanity, the heart-centered clinical expertise, the heart-centered brilliance that he brings forward. And he worked primarily with individuals with children diagnosed with autism. Just his approach is brilliant. And I encourage people to listen to it, to take it in, to allow his words, his presence, his energy influence and move them. And they will be better for bringing some of Dr. Baker's, just clinical brilliance and humanity into their own clinical practice.
Yeah, I think I always think of him every time I look at Saccharomyces boulardii bottles, Sid Baker, Dr. Sid Baker with his dosing and, everything. Yeah, definitely another one.
And magnesium.
To go and listen to. Magnesium. That's true.
Talk about a champion all of us are champions for magnesium, but he was really one who founded that love affair, I think, or fostered it in functional medicine.
That's awesome. Any others that you want to highlight? So many.
So many of them. Yeah. So I think what I want to talk about Jeff Bland. So we could talk about Jeff Bland first, and then we'll talk about some of the other scientists. So Dr. Jeff Bland has been my mentor, really. Dr. Richard Lord, who was my postdoc director at Metametrics Clinical Laboratory, and Dr. Jeff Bland, really two of my most important mentors, earliest and most important. And Richard has since retired, although we are still connected, and he's just living a really good life on a beautiful lake. And he's met Isabella we went up there and visited him and went out on his boat. It was so fun. And Jeff, as everybody knows, he's hard at work as ever, and just really moving our field forward. The most listened to podcast was with Jeff, and we talked about epigenetics. We talked about DNA and the genome and the epigenome, and it was one of the earliest conversations I had in epigenetics. And he, more than anybody, believed Romilly in us, right? And I think he really believed in the fact that we were starting to ask questions around how our functional medicine protocols would influence epigenetics. Of course, we know now, flash forward some years later, quite a few years later, we know that functional medicine profoundly influences the epigenome and beyond. There's human data, there's human research coming out every single day, really, in this arena. But there was a time when there really wasn't much, if any, with certain questions. And ours was the first, randomized clinical trial looking at a diet and lifestyle intervention and how it influenced epigenetics. And it's pretty extraordinary that it was the first. It's extraordinary that we were just really blessed to be in the right place at the right time, to be thinking the right things, and to have, Brent Eck, who was then CEO of Metagenics, offer to give us an unrestricted grant to move this forward. But it was scary at times, right? Like, it was scary. Like, it wasn't always well understood. In fact, I would say there's quite a bit of time when what we were up to wasn't really well understood, with the exception, with the steadfast, unwavering exception of Dr. Jeff Bland, who always believed in what we were doing. And as we moved it forward and we had questions and we, needed advice, and we just needed, we needed our boat pushed a little bit further. We needed a little wind in our sails. Jeff was and has always been there. And I think that conversation, and we'll link to all these in the show notes. Everybody will link to these conversations I'm referencing in the show notes, so you can go and find them, and anything that Rom references as well. And we'll link to our publications and any other publications. But he just always held us up. He just always held us up, always believed in us. He continues to believe in what we're doing, and challenge it, make it more interesting, push us forward, ask the big questions, just everything that a dream mentor would do. And I think the extraordinary thing about Jeff is that many of us say he's mentor to many. And so how he makes the kind of time that he makes to provide so many of us with this intentional direction is, it's beyond me. It's extraordinary.
It was. No, I mean, it was amazing to be part of that experience, like, really. But I mean, I guess, so there were, one thing was, I think that it wasn't even well understood that we could change the epigenome at that time. So, like, that was even part of the conversation. We had to do a lot of writing and talking about that, in terms of the research that was out there. And then, of course, now it's been built on, and that's kind of now taken for granted. And then the second piece was, well, you guys you're just all about MTHFR or something like that. It was misunderstood in that direction as well, rather than, what we were trying to do, which would be like being really upstream about supporting healthy methylation, including DNA methylation.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just very, very different. But you said you wanted to get to some of the scientists as well. Shall we? Which ones are on your list?
Yeah, and of course Jeff is, a scientist extraordinaire. So we're starting with him, but we have, I guess, just in thinking about, lots of juicy clinical content, and then we run the gamut to also really depth bench science. And gosh, I love it. I love it. So a cool thing about scientists, really really uniformly is that they're curious, even many, many decades into their career. I mean, look at Jeff, Charles Sirhan, such an exciting, just interested, curious human. Scientists uniformly, I have found, are like that. And they're willing to talk. They're willing to talk about, well, they're just, if they've got an audience who's as jazzed up about their science, it's all the more fabulous. But just circling back for a second to our research, Romilly, when you and I were sticking our toe in this pond of epigenetics and whether diet and lifestyle interventions could truly influence it. It was, as you said, there wasn't data out there. There wasn't human data out there. And I would, at the beginning, before I hit record, sometimes, or at the end of the podcast, I would just throw a little line out and mention, well, we're doing this randomized control study and we're looking at this dietary intervention, epigenetics. And I was nervous sometimes to put it out there, but I want to just say uniformly these folks that I put it out to were always excited about it, always curious, from David Sinclair and Walter Longo to, Moshe Sef, who stepped on, and he's an author on our paper. And of course he became a mentor to us, a deep mentor to us. He's out of McGill University on this journey and an important player in our study design and so on and so forth. But really, we received so much support from the scientific community in this arena. And I just feel very, very grateful for that. And help, again, just kind of pushing us in the right direction, connecting us to a lab, connecting us to a resource, and just helping kind of pave the way for, what we eventually published. But I'm thinking, so favorite scientists, I love talking to them all. Going back to Walter Longo, of course, he's brilliant with the fasting mimicking diet and how he came to that in his own journey, researching caloric restriction, and his mentor, and some of the fallout of excessive caloric restriction or long-term caloric restriction, and then developing the fasting mimicking protocol, for which they've got lots of really brilliant publications on. He was brilliant, interesting, he was a little tricky at first to get rolling. I think he's kind of a reserved person. He's got a reputation as being reserved, but we eventually just launched into twice, actually, we've had, and we've been on panel discussions live, just great, deep conversation. So, he took a little bit to draw out, but yeah, quite
funny. I don't remember it that way, but that's anyway, a little bit of insider info.
Yeah. Other really brilliant things. Randy Jirtle. Talking to Randy Jirtle, again, having access to brilliant minds, the most brilliant minds. Randy Jirtle, another individual who is Nobel category. He's got the most cited, his publication is the most cited publication in the history of science. Not a field of science, but science as an entity.
It's just insane. And that was the Agouti mouse paper, right?
The 2003 Agouti mouse paper, which of course was a massive and continues to be a massive influence for us. And so the fact that I was able to talk to him twice on the podcast is extraordinary, and we'll link to his work. So he demonstrated the power of nutrients on epigenetics, on gene expression with the Agouti mouse study. And we'll link to both of his podcasts. So if you're not familiar with Jirtle, I do encourage you to listen to both, especially maybe start with the first, where you can really hear about that journey. Janine LaSalle, gosh, Moshe Sef, just to talk a second about Moshe Sef. So I interviewed him in 2017, again, with deep, deep gratitude that he was willing to spend some time with me on New Frontiers. One of the most highly regarded epigeneticists out, and you really one of the first. He was in epigenetics. He was thinking about DNA methylation when they thought that it was sort of this irrelevant mark that you would find on, cytosines, in the
Some more of that junk stuff in the DNA, right?
yeah, and
Just
not
lumped together.
worthy to think about. I mean, for his brilliance is that he knew that couldn't possibly be true, and hung in there and continues to just do a really extraordinary research in this arena. The thing that what he showed, he's worked in animal models for much of his career, and he's been involved in researching human exposures. So, but just the impact of their behavioral experiences, impact of in utero stress, early life stress exposures in human and in animal models on health outcomes, and changing those outcomes using nutrients. So he's big in S-adenosylmethionine, which we use in clinical practice. Vitamin A, he's researched actually that cocktail he showed in a mouse model, S-adenosylmethionine and vitamin A he showed in an animal model could turn around PTSD behaviorally, and looking at DNA methylation in the brain of this animal model. Like he just has many, many, many extraordinary publications. So we'll link to that. But so one of the things that he said that really struck me, so his promise, like his expectation, was that we would be able to begin to diagnose these potential changes in utero. So perhaps an epigenetic bias towards developing a neurodevelopmental condition. You could diagnose it. You could use cell-free DNA from the mom, so just a blood draw, be able to tell what was happening epigenetically with the fetus, and actually be able to change that, before birth, so that a potential really detrimental condition becomes just a non-issue. It's been corrected, and that's what he talked to me about on our first podcast together, which was so deeply inspirational and just felt like science fiction. Right? Like science fiction.
And also the fact he was kind of thinking nutrients at the same time, right?
Yes.
In this
Yeah.
context, it's sort of, that was the kind of magic, I don't know, to me it was the magic kind of combination.
Yes. That's a great point, Romilly. Yes. We talked about the fallout, actually, of some of the demethylating agents that are used as, chemotherapeutics, actually. And there's, as you and I have talked about, there's widespread problems associated when you just broadly demethylate the epigenome. That's basically broadly changing gene expression all over the place. I mean, there's going to be a massive potential for horrible side effects because you're just changing gene expression all over the place, and not just with the target cancer. So yes, so he's always been biased towards using nutrient interventions. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a very, very good point. So he talked to me about this back in 2017. We'll flash forward to 2024. I think it was 2024, maybe 2023. I interview Janine LaSalle, who's a scientist out of UC Davis, I believe. So LaSalle has mapped the placental methylome. She's connected it with the central nervous system, so the brain placental methylome axis. And in so doing, she's been able to kind of pick up the potential for changes in the fetus during fetal development that can lead to neurodevelopmental disorders. So she's taken Moshe's original promise and brought it further, and is now developing the assays that Moshe talked about in 2017 to diagnose these methylation changes in cell-free DNA in maternal blood that can lead to the neurodevelopmental disorders in offspring, if I'm saying that clearly. So she's going to bring to realization his original promise, which is absolutely mind-blowing. She's working on these diagnostics now. And once we have these diagnostics, of course, now, as you pointed out, Dr. Moshe is interested in the nutrient interventions, as are we. And there's so much more human data out there that, we'll be looking at being able to use through a functional medicine lens what we identify in DNA methylation patterns in the cell-free DNA and correct, imbalances while, while still in utero, while still being developed. And it's just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. I mean, will we be able to look at the potential for, some of the age-associated chronic diseases that early and begin to turn those around? I mean, my expectation is very likely, as we get more and more sophisticated with this technology.
That's super cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to move us into a slightly different direction. But is there anything else you wanted to add in looking back or?
Let me say another awesome, just looking down at just a very truncated list. Let me say, I'm going to give you two people. Stephen Sinatra, the late, great cardiologist, Stephen Sinatra, who put CoQ10 on the map, who anecdotally, my mom was his nurse who helped him set up his cardiology practice when he was finishing his fellowship. Actually, when he was in his fellowship, they worked together at St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, and then he hired her to help set up his cardiology practice. It was so funny. It was so funny to share that anecdote. My mom, you worked with my mom, you hired my mom. But he worked with heart failure patients, and he really put the, CoQ10 on the map. And gosh, what a great conversation. Just another luminary in our field, and to just be able to spend some time with him was fabulous. And then, I see Bob Rountree, my really good friend, Bob Rountree, who I've taught at IFM for, over 10 years now. He had, we talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it was just a tour de force conversation. And he created a whole slide deck. I think he's the first and only person to create a companion slide deck that was highly downloaded. And this is still a relevant conversation. It's just, again, dripping with clinical utility. So I want to bring him up. And then the other podcast.
Well, just before you get, just on Bob Rountree, because in my mind, he's such an amazing educator. I just still have, in my mind, I can picture his lecture, his IFM lecture, actually, with the Batmobile heading into the nucleus to target the NLRP3 inflammasome. That was what he was talking about, but it was very visual. Go ahead.
It's so cool. You'll never forget the NLP3 inflammasome. Thanks to him, he's a great educator, and he's a practicing clinician. He's seeing patients in his practice. That combination is just gold. So what he's bringing is not theoretical. What he's bringing forward to us is from his experience, and it's just extraordinary. I mean, these things fundamentally change me as a provider, as a clinician. I mean, as a thinker, as a scientist, as a human, I mean, these podcasts don't go in one ear and out the other. I mean, they really change my own thinking, and they've evolved me, really, probably all of them. Another really cool one that I want to bring up is Paul Turner. So he's at the Turner Lab, runs the Turner Lab at Yale, and he brought back researching bacteriophages to the US. And so I just want to say that I want to link to it. The science on bacteriophages, if you're not familiar with them, is ridiculously interesting. We were working on them. Bacteriophages were used in the US prior to the development of antibiotics. So these guys have antibiotic potential, and I won't go into the how and why. I'll just encourage you to listen to this podcast. But when we developed antibiotics, we just put a pin in all of that science, more than a pin. We just stopped. It just became verboten. The bacteriophages that we were using and prescribing were stopped. They stopped production, and they were no longer available. So this is going back to like the 30s or 40s. But they continued research on bacteriophages in Eastern Europe, and they became more and more sophisticated in understanding how they worked and understanding indications. And, Turner started to research them in his, just brought it back to the US. And just a quick survey of the literature so far, their application is growing. And we will be, some of us are using them in clinical practice. We will be thinking and using them more and more for everything from infections. So again, they were started as, they were the precursor to antibiotics. So infection is one of their primary uses, but even beyond, looking at autoimmunity, looking at anything that's sort of infection associated. But I encourage people to get a listen to that podcast to just understand these guys.
So as you said, we're going to put all these links in the show notes, and definitely encourage everybody to go back and look at all the podcasts that have been released over the years, because there's just so much. There's so many good folks that you've interviewed, and amazing information that has been shared. And if you want to see the transcripts, that's all on the website as well. So
yeah, all of these podcasts are over there. Actually, I wanted to say something funny from the interview with Turner and his postdoc. They talk about from pond to bedside. So you actually find bacteriophages in a pond. And so sometimes we talk about from bench to bedside in the scientific world.
No,
like
we got
you
we got
figure
it.
something. So now pond. And so I just wanted a teaser is there's some cool case anecdotes in my conversation in this pond to bedside, some pretty heroic. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yes, go check it out. Okay, so along the way, right, so you started as a functional medicine clinician, and along the way came longevity medicine, right? And you were kind of in that edge of the wave as it has now sort of swept across large swaths of medicine. But could you sort of describe for us, from your lens, how do functional medicine and longevity medicine complement each other? How are they aligned? What is your perspective, and how you want people to understand that?
Right. All right. Well, you'll help me color in this. So we think functional medicine is longevity medicine, right? We would say functional medicine is longevity medicine.
Is there a gap in your health and longevity strategy? MitoQ mitoquinol is an advanced antioxidant that targets the inner mitochondrial membrane, reducing reactive oxygen species by 48%. This patented compound is backed by 30 years of research and 25 clinical trials by Harvard, Yale, and Oxford. MitoQ supports mitochondrial and cardiovascular health, metabolism, and DNA stability. Learn more at mitoq.com/Dr. Kara. That's mitoq.com/Dr. Kara.
You've likely heard about the longevity benefits of peptides. They're in skincare, supplements, they're everywhere. But not all peptides are created equal. Developed by skin longevity scientists, OS1, which is found in OneSkin topical supplements, penetrates deeper layers of the skin, impacting cellular level biomarkers for visible improvements in lines, wrinkles, and thinning skin. Ready to experience OS1's benefits? Use code Dr. Kara for 15% off your first order at oneskin.co/DRKARA.
So functional medicine is the clinical application of systems medicine. So basically, I think when we look at the whole person in their environment, and we go in and we help them balance and optimize, we are basically fostering the development of optimal health. Not just at that moment, but really going forward. I'll just say that one of the extraordinary things about functional medicine is that there's a ripple effect. So when one person in a family environment or, a community presence or unit gets better, that has an influence on the people around them. There's just this extraordinary ripple effect. It's not taking a drug, this medicine. It really has a profound influence. Why do you look so good? What are you doing? Wow, I want to try that. Or, somebody who's the head of the household, supporting changes in diet that influences everybody, or the movement, the movement towards moving, adding exercise in, etc. So I think
so it's contagious, functional medicine.
it is contagious. And I think, and our medicine is the most efficient and powerful at fostering good health in the moment, but health span, and commensurate with health span is, the possibility to live longer. But we don't want to live a long time. At least I don't want to live a long time in a disease process, being reliant on many medications or being disabled, as so many of us are fall prey to right now. I want to live with vibrant health span as well. So there's just no question in my mind that functional medicine has the richest toolkit towards fostering health span.
Yeah. And how does that sit then? If we think of, I'm sure everybody's sort of either maybe they're in it or they can see it from the periphery, this sort of biohacker approach to longevity, reaching for like single point interventions, or
Sure.
some of them are super expensive.
Sure.
How does that fit?
Right. Yes. So there are longevity interventions we can, there's stuff coming down the pike that's incredibly interesting. We'll just put a pin in talking about Vittorio Sebastiano, and we'll pop him on the show notes actually for people, so you can listen to some of the really cool stuff that's coming forward. So yeah, there's just longevity, thinking about biohacking, thinking about living a long time, the idea of, let's not die, or escape velocity, where you're reversing your biological age by a year every year. So basically you've become immortal. There's this pretty interesting conversation happening now that incidentally wasn't happening that long ago. And so it really makes people jump on the bandwagon for whatever is out there, whatever nutrient, whatever drug has been shown primarily in animal models, maybe just like worms, which is a common animal model for investigating longevity interventions. And they start taking it. And we know in functional medicine that if you take somebody who foundationally isn't balanced and you layer on nutrients, whatever they might be, because of, some catchy sales line or, some limited research, that really you're not going to be moving the needle on health at all, or likely, not at all, or very minimally. It's essential that, the foundational balancing takes place as we do in functional medicine. So it's essential that, whatever your individual imbalances are, be it, a bias towards, metabolic imbalances, or be it a bias towards, allergic disease, or, whatever your flavor of dysbiosis is, whatever your history leads you to, your current situation, your current situation imbalances that need to be corrected. All of this information is essential to understand and to approach and to dial in into an overall plan before layering these sort of sexy longevity supplements on. They're going to make any kind of a difference.
So you're not saying like don't do the newest longevity supplement, functional medicine is it. Rather, you're saying that the functional medicine foundations have to be there regardless. And yes, some of these are really interesting new innovations that are important to consider layering on.
Yes.
For those of us that want to optimize health span.
Yes. Yeah, do the foundational stuff first, and ideally find out whether these kind of the longevity interventions are appropriate for you. Find out. There are many, many papers that are floating around that are getting a lot of attention on, things like taurine, or vitamin D. Vitamin D obviously it's extraordinary, and many of us need to be taking it. Magnesium, like there's all sorts, rapamycin, I mean, we can go on and on about what's out there getting attention.
Yeah.
If you're vitamin D replete, layering on more vitamin D, because a study just came out showing that it reverses bioage in vitamin D deficient individuals, is not going to apply to you who has adequate vitamin D. Same with magnesium. Not everybody is going to respond to a 1 meal a day time restricted eating structure. That will not make all of us healthier. In fact, it will make some of us malnourished, and perhaps living in, a really heightened stress response because the body's moving into a starvation mode. For some of us, it's going to be extraordinary. It's going to be a game changing, but for others, it's absolutely damaging and inappropriate. And I think that requires a careful lens. Those kinds of questions, answering them just requires the lens of a provider who has the background knowledge and also has the knowledge of the human being they're taking care of, to be able to design something that's right for the individual. I mean, you and I often said, so we researched the methylation diet and lifestyle that, what we call Younger You now. We researched that in a randomized controlled trial, and people were basically needing to follow one kind of a structure. There was wiggle room within that dietary pattern for preferences and so forth, but there was a general structure that they needed to follow. And it's awesome that we moved the needle on changing, the epigenetic clock, the Horvath clock, and that we moved the needle in weight loss and, and cholesterol, et cetera. But we've always said, and it's always been clear, because this intervention was born in clinic, that we suspected we would go further with it when we could individualize it to the human being sitting in front of us. And so that's what we did for really years before we brought it into the research setting. We had this opportunity to prescribe it and individualize it for the human sitting in front of us. And as a result, we saw really pretty amazing clinical turnaround with the dietary pattern, autoimmunity, treating, various gut issues, migraine, headache, and on, kind of the litany of things that we would see in clinical practice. We saw people using the Younger You dietary pattern individualized for them, responding to really quite well. And so I in the book, by design, I speak to that. I gave some basic ideas on how you might layer the dietary pattern into somebody, on a specific carbohydrate diet, or somebody on a ketogenic, or somebody with various allergies, et cetera. I wanted to just push that forward, that we always think in functional medicine that, treating the individual first is going to yield the best outcome.
Yeah. And it makes me, I always think of, in science, we have these tools for assessing, like a randomized controlled trial, which is pretty highly esteemed. I mean, ours was a pilot, but nevertheless, under this structure of being controlled and being randomized, but it gives you a mean output, right? Which tells you, I think, whether you found signal in what the inputs were, which is a valuable piece of information. Like, on average, did we find a meaningful signal in that investigation, which we did. But then we also realized that nobody really sits on the mean. All the individuals are somewhere around around a mean, some above and some below, and that's part of understanding individuals and tailoring each of them. So
very nicely said. I love it.
Well,
this is her stats class. Like, just really nicely articulate in this arena.
I enjoyed my stats class. It's true. No, they didn't talk about that, though, I have to say. But anyway, I did still enjoy my stats.
I mean, it's just a nice articulation of the benefit of both approaches. The N of one, but also, yes, in any intervention, people are not falling on the mean. Yes, you've spoken to that before. We're all sort of dancing around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. I mean, what does that mean when somebody comes to you in clinic then? because I know that a lot of people will be familiar with what functional medicine is, what it looks like, but maybe some of the listeners aren't. And so when you're talking about this combined approach and really individualizing it, can you speak a little bit to what the experience is like for somebody coming, say, to see you in a clinic situation?
Yeah, so there's, that we need to get a depth history, and we do that through a variety of means. There's, they're going to fill out a paperwork to probably provide more information than they have ever to any provider. And then we'll have an interview after that. We'll have a meeting, and we'll conduct a physical exam and do laboratories to really look under the hood and understand where that person has been and where they are today and where they are potentially going. One of the very extraordinary things about where we are today in the world is that our technology is improving. Our access to very sophisticated labs, imaging, et cetera, is just really booming. And so the kind of sophisticated analysis that we can do today, kind of information that we can glean about a person's health and well-being, and make predictions about where they're going and change, when those predictions are negative. I mean, it's getting more and more powerful, what we're able to do. And I should just let me just mention Owen Phillips, getting back to talking about podcasts. So he's the CEO, he's the founder of Brain Key, which applies AI interpretation to brain MRI, and and I've got a podcast with him, and the kind of information, the sophisticated analysis that can be obtained using what they're doing at Brain Key is just extraordinary. It's very exciting, and probably at some point we will be getting brain MRIs. We will want this data when we're at our highest health, perhaps when we're, quite young, to have a baseline brain scan, to have this information about our, brain in an optimal state, so that we're able to track over time and get in there and recognize changes super, very early when they're the most correctable. So there's just exciting technology. And in the laboratory front, I talked to Hans Freichmann, who is who's a founder and I think, CEO or chief science officer. He's one of the scientists at Neurocode, and they've created a suite, an incredibly sophisticated suite of biomarkers looking at identifying early, on the continuum of neuroinflammatory changes in, specifically related to cognitive impairment. So they've got a suite of 3 biomarkers that they're looking at, that they've got, they've put very good research on. They're just doing such cool, high caliber work, collaborating with scientists around the world. And we can use these now. And yes, they're used to help identify Alzheimer's, but also to track, whether our interventions are correct, are correcting these, or lowering these, or changing them. And in fact, they are, by the way. Bredesen has done some incredible work in this arena, but also, catching neuroinflammation as it relates to COVID, or as it relates to Lyme or toxin exposures, mold, et cetera, et cetera. So our tools are just growing in their sophistication. And, for me in my space, I think about them in the preventative arena and getting baseline, doing these baseline analytes when we can, when it's possible. The exciting thing is that these next generation companies are working on getting coverage. They're working on, so these technologies that are, that are new or that are emerging, are pricey now, and many of us have to pay out of pocket to have access to them. But there's active intention on getting, insurance coverage. And one of the, I don't have a podcast with these guys, but I'm a huge fan of the Clearly scan, which is applying AI technology to coronary artery CT scans and being able to identify, the continuum of soft, very dangerous plaques to, full calcification, which is just moving the needle extraordinarily forward in the realm of cardiovascular disease. Very, very, very exciting. They've just
Amazing.
gotten, Medicare coverage. So these things will become, I think, standard of care, not just in the US, but eventually really everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's super exciting. And it just, in terms of the preventative activity, I think Bredesen's publications have shown most impact in early stage, right? So being able to understand the earlier changes,
yes,
seems super important, and these tools are giving us that insight.
Well, and one of the cool things that Dr. Frickman said on the podcast was seeing people who have the genetic bias towards developing dementia and have a family history, the ApoE4 gene that is so terrifying to those of us who have it. Seeing that the Bredesen intervention can really shut down the onset of it. It's just extraordinary, so there was once upon a time that this gene was a shoo-in for developing dementia, and to begin to be able to look and see that there are interventions that can slow or perhaps halt the directive is just extraordinary.
Yeah. That's super exciting. I mean, I think you're already telling us to where I wanted to go next, which is like looking a little bit to the future as to, where are we headed? And I also wanted to point out that you have a very exciting masterclass for clinicians coming up. The title is Functional Medicine is Longevity Medicine. And you can find out more at the URL drcarafitzgerald.com. That's drcarafitzgerald.com/masterclass.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a few words about what you're excited about for that upcoming event?
Yeah, so we're going to have some rock stars. Some of them you've already met on the podcast. We'll have some big rock stars joining us to talk from the lens of longevity medicine, to talk through the lens of functional medicine, to talk about some of the next generation science that's coming down the pike, and some of the interventions that are available to us now that seem very next generation. So, but foundationally, I want people to be very clear that functional medicine is longevity medicine, hence the name. So this is geared towards functional medicine providers, savvy regular folks. I think are going to really love it as well. And people who are outside of the functional medicine world, but are providers in different arenas, will probably also find something interesting here for them as well. But for us as functional medicine providers, I want us to be buoyed up that we already have a very robust toolkit when it comes to longevity medicine. And we'll talk about what that is and what it looks like and why. And then we'll just layer on, new tools and some of the science to be thinking about. So I'm very excited about it. And we'll be, the guests that we're going to have on, we'll link to it in the show notes, and you can see that it's just going to be extraordinary. Our last masterclass was, we had 2,000 live attendees. I think we topped 2,000 live attendees. So we expect this to be just bubbling with cool activity and a great audience.
And I'm hoping that you're going to talk a little bit as well about the latest publications on the methylation diet and lifestyle, targeted diet and lifestyle, where some of the data is showing some exciting associations. So
for sure.
We look forward to that.
I've got one word. Polyphenols, or maybe two words: phytochemicals, polyphenols.
Yeah, and actually, we also just had another publication that outlined that the dietary protocol that you used in the research has around about 3,000 milligrams per day of polyphenols specifically, which actually ends up higher than many of the other interventions that are being researched for changes to epigenetics and the epigenetic clocks, etc. So that's pretty interesting. We can tell, I'm sure people will learn more about that at the masterclass as well.
And we'll link to it. We'll link to those papers in the show notes as well.
Yes, super exciting. Okay, we one of the things I wanted to just get to as we near the end. So, you have been known to turn up at conferences with a Dora the Explorer backpack. That was just best sight in New York City earlier this year. If you like
That's so funny.
arriving with your Dora the Explorer backpack. Anyway, but tell us a little bit about your life as a parent, a business owner, a clinician, a forward thinker. Like, how do you keep balance, still
That's
carve out
funny.
time and space for yourself, for self-care, and, any tips that can save the rest of us?
Use your kids' stuff. I would say first and foremost. I mean, that backpack definitely got more attention than anything else that I did.
It's quite apt, really. I mean, I think we could give you that title, Dora the Explorer.
That's so funny. That's really funny, Romilly. Yeah, that was the first question at my lecture. That's your mom, or that's your kid's backpack. It's so funny, Michelle. Larry said that to me. So yeah, that came from Isabella. I just realized it was the perfect size. It was just, yeah, they needed it at the conference and she was there with me. How do I stay sane? Well, I can tell you right now first of all, I live in Baja California Sur. I live in Mexico, which
We are
for
jealous
me,
of that.
it's been that was a quality of life change when I realized that I could kind of manage the business and also elevate our lives here. It became a no-brainer, and so we're thriving in this environment. It's very outdoors. It's very physically active naturally. It's very community centric. My bike is right there. I don't
And
drive to the
that,
office.
right? With your heart rate variability and all the
Yes.
other measures that you're tracking.
Yes. Yeah, immediately. Well, I knew when we first vacationed here, and because most people on vacation are going to see some of those measurements, snap to beautiful places when they have some downtime, but to actually see it continue to be strong or exceptional, like to see my heart rate variability, just go to the highest it's been by changing the environment, to see Isabella thriving and happy and just so well connected and able to make friends. There's just something about this environment that has really resonated with what we need. So yeah, deep gratitude.
Okay. Yeah. So what if we can't move to Mexico, just as a hypothetical?
Yeah. What if you
What do we
can't move?
do?
Right. So we have to foster community. I mean, I would say that's huge. We need to be, and there's some cool science out there showing that the physical activities that are most associated with longevity, so with expanding lifespan, and obviously health span would be in that with that, are activities that involve other people. So, some sort of a team sport, or, some kind of a physical activity. Maybe it's hiking with other people or playing tennis. So the combination of the interconnection plus the physical movement seems to be a pretty extraordinary sweet spot. And how do we foster connectivity in our lives? Do we have family nearby, or, do we have a spiritual practice, or is there a really amazing coffee shop? Is our area, is it reasonably walkable? Can we get out into the world where we are and connect with others in that way? So I think for me, what I've had to do to foster as much balance as possible, answering those questions, figuring out how to make that work in my life has been essential.
Mm-hmm.
It's, for me, when I was riding my bike in the US, I'm a cyclist, as probably anybody knows who's followed my work for any length of time. Riding environments where I could actually talk on the phone. So sometimes on my bike was the time when I got to connect with, family members or friends, or even do some of our meetings for, work I would have on my bike, as long as I was in a safe spot and, the meeting wasn't too demanding. I could do it while I was riding. That was really fun.
But yeah, yes. I know. No, that's awesome. Yes. Did I interrupt you? Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I didn't even talk about food. Obviously, that's that's a whole nother conversation. But being able to source, really fresh, clean nutrients, and those dense polyphenols, those dense nutrients that are dense with those phytochemicals that we're really coming to learn, not just in our research, but in so much more human data coming out, that these phytochemicals are extraordinary essential players in terms of directing optimal gene expression.
So everybody should come to the masterclass to find more detail on that and
so much
hear
more
from others so much more about that. That was going to be very exciting. So I think that we should wrap up. Thank you so much for letting me walk in your shoes a little bit and be the interviewer on your podcast. And it was super fun. And I have to say, a lot of us are going to be relying on you to continue to push us and to improve how we are thinking about and practicing functional medicine and longevity medicine as well. So we're very excited for what's to come on the podcast. And just to finish off, we have a little bit of a surprise for you. We have some recordings that your friends, your colleagues, podcast guests have sent in, and we're going to play them for you now. So,
wow.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us, everybody, and I hope you enjoy these messages from Dr. Fitzgerald's colleagues and friends. First up, we have Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and New York Times best-selling author.
Well, hey, Kara, David Perlmutter here. I just want to say congratulations on the 10-year anniversary of your podcast. An exceptional podcast indeed. As you know, you and I just recorded a couple of days ago, as it were, on your podcast. And I'm really just wanting to take a couple of moments just to thank you for all the work that you're doing, really blazing a very important trail and really making us all embrace the notion that our health destiny is not written in our genetic code, that it is highly variable based upon the choices that we make. That's such an important message, for all of us in the biz, but also for everyone in general. So congratulations. And I know you're going to keep up the good work for a long time to come. So we're all excited to hear what you've got next. Bye-bye.
Next up, we have Dr. Lucia Aronica, epigenetics and nutrition expert, Stanford lecturer.
Congratulations on 10 incredible years of new frontiers, Cara. I'm honored to share this mission of bringing epigenetics from the lab to the kitchen, where it belongs. Here's to many more years of friendship and transforming lives together. Ciao.
And now we have Dr. Austin Perlmutter, internal medicine physician and also New York Times bestselling author.
Hi, Kara. Big congratulations on the 10-year anniversary of your podcast. Thank you so much for all that you do always, and in particular for being a trailblazer in the science of epigenetics and how food can influence our health beyond the basics that most people tend to talk about, and really focusing on something that has such a powerful kind of storyline and opportunity for people to understand how much agency they really have over their health. So thank you again for all that you do, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
And now you'll hear from Dr. Corey Schuler, functional medicine practitioner and natural health expert.
Dr. Kara Fitzgerald, congratulations on 10 years on the podcast. Remember back when we would say things like epigenetics and microbiome, and people would think we're sneezing or maybe having a seizure or something, or you'd say methylation, MTHFR, and then people would assume you're cursing. Well, I just wanted to share my profound thanks for all of the work that you've done and really changed the way that people talk and think about integrative medicine, personalized care. It's been a trip, right? And you've lived it. And I just want to say, you're one of the greatest. You're one of the leaders. You're one of the people that really leads with humility and intellect. Your depth and caring shine through in your questions and your answers. And I'm just really grateful to have been in your presence, to call your friend and a colleague. And I hope we get to do this in 10 more years. So congrats, Kara.
And last but absolutely not least, Ashley Koff, RD, award-winning nutrition expert and director, UC Irvine Fellowship.
Hey, Kara and the team at New Frontiers. I just want to say thank you. Your curiosity and dedication and thoroughness in how you cover topics has helped me as a practitioner amplify and really learn about just incredible topics and be able to share them in a better way. Specifically, I am forever grateful to you for, again, your curiosity that led you to talk to Dr. Charles Sirhan and dive deep into the space of pro-resolving mediators, specialized pro-resolving mediators. And I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to talk about how that has become such a significant part of my practice, and really hats off to both of you for again, just providing information that is really helping to change the game to help people resolve inflammation. So congratulations, thank you, keep it up, and I can't wait to celebrate another 20.
Thank you to all these friends and colleagues who have left such kind messages. Thank you to Dr. Fitzgerald for being willing to be on the hot seat in this episode and doing something a little bit different. And thank you to all of you listening, tuning in to this episode. We hope to see you on the next one.
I want to personally invite you to the Functional Medicine is Longevity Medicine Masterclass, a free online event featuring the leading minds in functional and longevity medicine. We'll explore why functional medicine remains the most science-backed path to extending health span. In a world chasing the latest longevity hacks, we're spotlighting what we've known all along. Healthy longevity starts with root cause resolution, systems biology, and personalized care. Join us live September 17th through the 19th at functionalmedicineslongevitymedicine.com. Thanks to our Diamond Level sponsors. Precision Analytical, creator of the Dutch test, is offering evidence-based training on key topics like hormone metabolism, interpreting Dutch test results, and therapeutic strategies, including hormone replacement therapy, all aimed at improving patient outcomes. Become a registered provider to gain access to an expansive education hub with ongoing content, including webinars and case studies. Visit dutchtest.com/courses to get started and grow your practice. For over 40 years, the foundation of Biotics research has been innovation and quality. Their goals remain unchanged: innovative ideas, carefully researched concepts, and product development with advanced analytical and manufacturing techniques. Biotics nutritional products are of superior quality and effectiveness. They are available exclusively to the healthcare provider. Find them at bioticsresearch.com. Thanks to our gold level sponsors. Timeline, fueling cellular energy for a lifetime of healthy aging. Find them at timeline.com. Vibrant Wellness, transformative lab tests for wellness. Find them at vibrant-wellness.com. Disclaimer. This podcast is for informational purposes only. If you have a specific medical concern or if you have any questions, please speak with your healthcare provider.